we hit those 3 questions. I'm going to go over question number 2. Okay, so question number 2, and then we'll start with class. Position. Yeah, go over question number 2. What do you know? See, Erica almost finished with the kind of looking at the information. All right, guys. Can I get a volunteer to read question number 2 to the class for me? All right, Oscar, go ahead. Oh, you want to? All right, Mary, go ahead.
What are some potential sources of error for Jerome?
All right. Do we understand what I'm asking for when I say potential sources of error? Do we remember that at all? Probably not. That was my guess here. That's why I wanted to go over question number 2. Okay. So part of the scientific process is we ask a question, we experiment, and at the end of it, we analyze that data. But the very last step of the scientific process, the last thing that we do, is we predict what are some next steps that we can take. How can we change that question again and experiment in the future, okay? So Jerome was doing this experiment with the flashlights and the batteries, right? And he was specifically, he was specifically trying to figure out if battery type or brand, if battery type or brand affected how long batteries lasted. What I'm asking here is, what is another experiment that we could conduct? Now that we've got this data, now that we've seen this, what's another thing we could do? Okay?
Which battery lasts longer?
Which battery lasts longer? Specifically looking for which battery lasts longer? All right. What's another experiment we could conduct? Anyone else have any ideas? Somebody in my other class said what type of flashlight, so to keep the battery the same and change the flashlight. As long as you've got something down there, I will accept it. Make sure your name is on top of that, and then I'll come around and collect those, okay? So it should be on the front side. We are in our circle position today, but someone might have noticed something that's a little bit different about our circle. What's different about our circle today? We're facing the board, all right? What do we notice isn't in the center? What was that kind of? Me, right? Remember how I talked about it in our last circle? Our circles are going to be changing a bit? Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Erica. Hey, Oscar, can you put yours in the pile and then put it right there for me? That's fine. All right, so I want to put on the board, so we make this work. I talked about our circles, and I used this word class meeting, okay? So I want to be completely transparent here. This is my very first time trying to run a class meeting, so I'm going to need help from you guys, and engagement from you guys. I'm also probably going to make mistakes here. I would just appreciate your grace when I make those mistakes, and your patience. And we try and make this shift from class circles, which are very teacher-driven, and kind of you guys are like passive participants, to doing a class meeting, which is supposed to take some of the power of the classroom from the teacher and be more of a community, you guys making decisions, okay? So I wanted to put up on the board, these were the expectations that we always had for circles. Oscar, can you read expectation number 1 out loud for me?
Only the person with the talking piece.
All right, very good. Can you, Mary, can you read number 2 for me?
No playing around when passing or talking.
Kyla, number 3.
Some questions you will be expected to answer.
No opt.
No opt-out.
Very good. And then number 4 was we need to engage thoughtfully. These were the rules and the expectations that I had when we engaged in a circle, okay? So some of these things are important, but they're not necessarily the way that a class meeting runs. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about the different roles that we have here in the classroom so we can start to like establish some norms for the way that our meeting's going to run, okay? So I'm going to go up to the board just for a little bit so I can write, but then I'm going to join you guys back down here. And we're going to think about some things or expectations that we would have of each person in the room. You'll notice that there are 3 columns on the board. Marion, what are the 3 columns?
Teacher role, scholar role, and
Everyone,
everyone.
okay? That last column is something that I want us to be very critical of. There are a lot of things that I expect of you guys in the classroom. I expect shirts tucked in, IDs on, all of that stuff. And we don't frequently talk about the things that you guys expect from me in the classroom. And some of these things actually apply to all of us. For example, what does Mr. Lorette have on?
ID.
An ID. Now that's a very surface level thing, right? You can look at me and you can see that I have an ID on. I want us to think more about the ways that we interact with one another. What are the expectations that we can expect everyone to have? I'm going to put one up as an example, and I think it's one that's very important to all of us, and I think everyone should show one another respect, right? And respect looks different for each person, and it takes a kind of understanding of how that person wants to be respected or how that person wants to be interacted with. So one of my expectations is that everyone is respectful of others. That's not something that's just a teacher expectation, that's also a scholar expectation, right? What are some things that we might expect from specifically me? Not something that you guys would do, but specifically me, you would expect in this circle, or rather this class meeting.
I don't know. Be yourself.
Me to be myself? So you guys shouldn't be yourself?
Everybody
Let's add that in. We'll start there. Let's go ahead and add that one in. So Marion said, be yourself, and that should be an everyone thing, right? I'm going to say be honest about how you're feeling, because I think that kind of like builds on being yourself. So being honest about feelings. I think that can sometimes be a little scary, especially in groups that are unfamiliar, but I would say that this is a pretty familiar group. Like we've got a pretty tight community going here. And being yourself should come hopefully pretty naturally to us. I'm going to put something under teacher role because this is something that I was thinking about a lot as I was planning this. And one of the teacher roles that I think can sometimes make us seem like jerks is whenever something negative happens in the group, even though we're trying to create this class community and we're having this meeting where we're all contributing to this class community, when negative things happen, I want to say that it is everyone's responsibility to kind of like understand that something negative has happened, but maybe redirecting those negative things can be a teacher responsibility. I don't want you, so for example, if someone were to curse during a meeting, it would be a teacher responsibility of mine in the room to be like, hey, like maybe let's like keep the language appropriate. So redirecting those negative behaviors, I don't want you guys to feel the pressure of that yet, but eventually as we move into our meetings, our class meetings, I want us to all feel that ownership, so when something negative happens to our community, we feel comfortable responding to it. But for now, I'm going to put in a teacher role, redirecting negative behavior. Can anybody think of any scholar roles specific to you guys? Because a lot of these things are going to be everyone's roles, right? What is something that might be specific to you guys? If you guys want to talk with a partner or someone, come up with something. I just want to make sure we have at least one thing in that scholar role category. And we can always come back to these. These can always change to Kyla.
Be appropriate.
Be appropriate. So I can be inappropriate?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No.
All right. Being appropriate. Can we put that one in the everyone column? I would appreciate that one going in the everyone column. Thank you for that one, Kyla. So, being appropriate. Specific to scholar roles, things that only you guys can do. I want to, Marion?
Be focused, coming up on class on time.
Be focused and come to class on time. I'll add that one in. So being focused and on time, especially for days like today, right? So be focused and on time. That's another one that I'm actually going to move to the everyone column because I want to make sure that I'm also here and present for you guys. Kylie, did you also have another one that you wanted to try? What's another one that you thought about adding in?
Participate.
Participate. That's a. I'm going to go with participate on that one. I do like that one, Kyla. Let's make sure the support is working. But participating, because there's no lack of me participating, right? But I want to make sure that we have some scholar voice in here, so I'm going to add that one in. There's another thing that I was thinking about for scholar roles, so I really am going to rely a lot on you guys to give me feedback. I said at the very beginning of this is my first time doing it. I'm going to make mistakes. There's going to be things that I do wrong. And when things that go wrong, or you're frustrated by the way that things happen in a class meeting, I need you guys to be able to give me that feedback. So I'm going to say give Mr. Florette feedback. Florette feedback. Which kind of goes in line with participating. I can do all of these things, I can plan all of these things, but if I don't get feedback from you guys, it's going to be very distant. It's not going to be real for you guys, and I want it to be real. So I'm going to come back down, I'm going to join us over here, and we're going to take a look at some data before we get started, okay? So for a while now, we've been tracking in class using a certain item. What's the thing that we've been tracking in class? Whenever people do well, what is it, Marion? Beans, right? So you guys may not know this unless you were the bean tracker. Can someone who's a bean tracker talk about where the beans go, or share with everyone where the beans go at the end of class, what we do with them? Alex, finish it up. What do we do? We put it in the jar, and then what do we do with the computer? Very good. We have a spreadsheet that we've been tracking it on. I've actually been tracking it for quite a few weeks, and I want to show you guys some data, okay? So if you look on the board right now, I have this pie chart, and there are no names on this pie chart right now, and that's intentional. But if you look, you can see on the right side, there's that thing that says total beans. How many beans have we earned completely together as a class? How many beans have we earned in the weeks that I've been tracking? So if we're looking on the right, that table, 349 is the total number of beans. Now, if you look here, there are all these colors. And Oscar, what was your question going to be about these colors? What was your question?
What color was the beans?
What color? So these colors, these percentages represent people. So this is a person, 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 and this is a person. You're one of those. I'm not giving a name yet. I will reveal to everyone the names of who has how many beans for what in just a little bit. But before we do that, I wanted to give you guys an overview, like a big zoom out picture of where we are in terms of what we earned. 349. What can somebody, I want two things. What was one thing you could do to get a bean? Participate in class, all right? Anything else? Or other things that I gave out beans for, Erica? Answering for a question, right? If you gave someone a pen or pencil, not only did I give you a merit, but you would sometimes earn beans. Now, if we take a look, I want to go over here. This is by week, by person, okay? So if we look at this blue line is the same person every week, okay? And if we look at this red line is the same person every week, and so on and so forth. These were all the weeks that we tracked. Again, I haven't added names yet. Now, before we add names, I want to show you guys this. So what I've done is I've created individual graphs for each person for the number of beans that they've earned. I'm going to pass them out, and it's going to be your job as a class to figure out who has what graph, or try and predict who has what graph, and then we're going to talk about it, and then we'll reveal actually who has what, okay?